Hey guys, it's me again, Madame Macabre. So I know I've been doing a lot of the Madame Reads segments lately on my channel, where I do various creepypastas and urban legends and things like that. Well, today I thought I might mix things up a little bit by sharing some real-life horror. See, actually just a few days ago, my best friend Shadowkisses and I went down to visit our friend OminousUnknownKiller, who also happens to be an amazing Jeff the Killer cosplay, down in Oregon, and some really strange stuff happened. I will go ahead and tell you what happened, and maybe after that you can chip in on what you think it was, because we certainly have no idea what the hell it was. The Ibach incident. As I previously mentioned, my best friend and I had made our way down to Oregon State to visit another friend. We had loaded up our car for a short road trip and planned on spending the night. The farther down we drove, the more we realized we were entering a heavily rural area. There was nothing but a few suburbs and farmland and forest. Upon arriving at our friend's house, we watched movies, talked, and just generally hung out. It wasn't until a little bit later that our friend OminousUnknownKiller mentioned that there was a really cool park nearby and that maybe we should go and check it out. We agreed and we began our walk over. During the day, it was easy to tell that the park was beautiful. It was well manicured, had large grassy fields, and playground equipment for the children. And if you walked back far enough, it led into the opening of a forest. The more we saw, the more we thought that this would make the perfect setting for a potential short horror film we were thinking about shooting. We decided that it would be best to return after night had fallen to get a better scope on how it would possibly appear during filming. So a few more hours passed and we watched a few more movies and hung out a little longer, until finally the sun had completely set. Well, I guess it's easy to say this as it was around 2 in the morning by the time we left again. Once again, we began walking towards the park. Mind you, Shadowkisses decided to drive as she had been wearing a new pair of sandals that caused horrible blisters on her feet, so she drove and decided that she would wait for us there. So OminousUnknownKiller and I began our walk to the park. It was actually quite a pleasant night. It wasn't cold and there wasn't a heavy breeze or anything, and the walk wasn't strenuous or anything. It's ironic because on our way down to the park, we began making jokes about how all these areas would be great for horror films. Just generally having a good time, entertaining ourselves on the way down. The farther out we walked, the darker it seemed to get as we left the general safety of the suburbs. As we neared the park, there was a stretch of sidewalk where we couldn't even see where we were walking. We could, however, see the shining headlights of Shadowkiss's car sitting all the way across the field in the parking lot. Because it was so dark, we decided it best to stick to the sidewalk and just take the long path around all the way over to the parking lot where she was parked. It was when we were nearing one of the large fields that separated us from the parking lot that I decided to pull out my phone and snap some pictures. OminousUnknownKiller had mentioned that the headlights shining towards us across the dark field was really cool lighting and could possibly be used later on in the film. Taking advantage of this, I decided to snap a picture. I had to switch it into nighttime mode to even be able to pick anything up properly, but after shifting it over, got a fairly decent view of the shot. As I was preparing to take the picture, I noticed something strange. Not only did the camera pick up the light of the headlights, but there were also 2 small, glowing orbs. I immediately recognized them to be eyes. It was strange, because outside of the view of the camera, I couldn't see anything. If it were something like a deer, or a dog, or a cougar even, the eyes would have reflected some sort of light for us to see. I called Ominous over, and they also saw the lights moving across the screen of my phone. And they also couldn't see anything outside of the phone. What was even scarier is the eyes were moving towards us. I tried snapping a few pictures, and most of them were blurry as the eyes were moving, but I was able to snap one solid picture. However, we didn't stop to look over the photos at this time. We decided it best to keep moving. After about a minute or so, I started to lose my nerve and I switched to the flashlight app. I decided to shine it all around us to see if there was perhaps a raccoon or something that would get scared away. The interesting thing is that even though I shone it across the field, there was nothing there. It was strange because whatever was out there would have had to move incredibly quickly to not even be within sight. It was a little unsettling because there had been something fairly near us, at least it appeared that way on the camera view, just moments before, but there was nothing to be seen. This meant one of two things, and I'm honestly not sure which thought is more disturbing. The first is that it recoiled and ran back in the direction it came from, which means it would have had to cover a lot of ground quickly. It was a large field, and it was closer to us than it was the direction it came, so the speed it would have had to move is a little unsettling. Or there is the second thought. It somehow managed to get around us without us noticing. Ominous and I decided to keep moving towards the car. It was strange because at that point, both of us felt as though something were watching us, but we just ignored it and kept minding our own business. By the time Shadowkisses got out of the car, we decided it best not to tell her. We, being the mature adults we are, went to the park's set of swings, where we proceeded to swing for about the next half hour. Once again, while on the swings, we all felt a little uneasy as if something were watching us. Even Shadowkisses mentioned this, and she had no idea about the incident of the thing in the field. After a while, we all started feeling so uneasy that we decided it best to return home. Upon arriving back at Ominous's house, we all agreed that none of us were ready for bed yet, so we went out to sit in the hot tub. While sitting out there, I decided to finally show Shadowkisses the photos. You see, I hadn't even looked at them in detail myself up until that point because, well, we were hanging out and having fun, and I had kind of forgotten about it. I then pulled out my phone and tried zooming in on the strange orbs. That's when I froze for a moment. I could hardly believe what I was seeing. It was very strange. I could see something around the orbs, almost like a face, and I couldn't tell what kind of face. It looks neither human nor animal. I ended up passing the picture around, and we were all just staring at it in shock. We didn't really know what it was. We decided that before we freaked ourselves out or got too excited over the prospect of anything interesting, we would take the photos in and change the exposure and levels and see if we could get a better picture of what exactly it was, because for all we knew, it still could have been some sort of animal or something. So we made our way back inside and huddled around Shadowkisses' laptop. We transferred the photo from my phone onto her computer and opened it up in Photoshop. Slowly, as we began to adjust the levels, I could feel goosebumps rising up on my arms. There was definitely a face. I still had no idea what kind of face. Mind you, it didn't look animal or human, but it was a face. There was no doubt about it. We tried discussing possibilities of what it could have been. It couldn't have been a deer. It wasn't the right height, and its eyes weren't the right distance apart. And given our general proximity to the suburbs, it's really the only wildlife present that would be anywhere near the right size. We also talked about the prospect of it perhaps being a dog. But that theory also fell apart, as dogs have pretty predictable behavior. They're either gonna come up and say hi when they see you, or they're gonna charge you. And one way or another, they would have made noise that we could have heard. We talked about perhaps it was a person, but people's eyes don't refract light like that, and they also make enough noise to be heard. It was strange, because we were out, literally in the middle of nowhere, and it was silent. We could hear our own footsteps, and even the sound of us shifting our own weight. Whatever it was incredibly quiet. What's even stranger is the fact that it was able to cover so much ground without making any noise. If a person or a dog, or even a raccoon, were to start running across the field at the speed necessary to cover as much ground as it did, we sure as hell would have heard it. By the time we were done discussing all the possible theories and watching them fall apart, we decided that, we may never know what exactly it was, but perhaps we would go back in the morning and take some comparison pictures to get an idea of the approximate size of whatever this was, and maybe that would help us narrow it down. So that's what we did. The following day, we returned to the park in daylight and went to the same spot where we had seen the thing. Ominous held the camera, and I went out and stood in the field at approximately the same place as where we saw the eyes. This really upset me, given it was a lot closer than I had thought. Probably about 10 to 15 feet away from where we were standing. It was uncomfortably close, and I had no idea. Using myself for scale, we were able to deduce that whatever it was, its eyes came up to about the same level as my waist. To give you a better idea, I stand at about 5'9". That was no dog. Whatever it was very tall, very fast, and very quiet. It was upon returning home that we learned some interesting things. You see, there has been a found footage style short film shot not too far from where we live. This film revolves around a strange human-like creature set in Battleground, Washington. This was a little unsettling, as we had passed through Battleground, Washington to reach our friend. The place where this supposed found footage film had taken place was a mere 20-minute drive from where we had been when these strange things occurred. Once again, we don't want to jump to any conclusions. We have no idea what it was, nor do we claim to know any different. It was just something very strange and hard to explain. What's worse, Ominous still lives out in that area, and for the past few days since we've left, has been seeing things when they go out at night, and has reason to believe it may have followed them home.